Okay, so first of all, let's look at what is the Kṣetra and then knowledge itself. So further Bhagavan says what that field is, what is the nature of this field, what are its modifications, whence also it is and who he is and his powers. These hear from me in brief. So Bhagavan, like the master teacher, setting out exactly what he's going to talk about. And then he says, it's not that, I'm talking this not in relation to humanity, because rishis themselves have sung about this field and the knower of the field in many different ways. Various distinctive chants and also suggestive words indicative of Brahman. In other words, that there are people who have actually experienced both these things, and they've also chanted and sung and written about it. So, and he says this is full of reason and decision. So the sages have discovered the truth, and they've also talked about the truth by distinctive chants and suggestive words. So let's see what this Kṣetra is. And it consists of 24 elements. So starting with the 5 great elements, earth, fire, water, etc. And then egoism, this I-ness, which is part and parcel of what we experience ourselves. The sense of I am this person. This is called egoism or I-ness. Then the intellect, and also the unmanifested, in this case, the vasanas. Vasanas are subliminal inclinations and tendencies which are not manifest, but they start manifesting themselves in the intellect and the mind as thoughts and feelings which come together as desires. Then he talks about the 10 senses. So we don't have 10 senses, but what he means is the organs of action and organs of perception. 5 of each, which make up the 10 senses, and the one mind. So mind is included, intellect is included, ego is included, the unmanifest vasanas are included, the 10 senses are included, and of course the whole thing is made up of Prakriti, which is the 5 great elements, and the 5 objects of the senses. These are also included in the field. So what do we mean by that? We mean the organ of perception is the eye. What it is seeing is the vision. The vision is the object of the sense. So this have to be included in the what is as the sanghata, as the collection, this congregate of these 24 elements, which then becomes the field. So you can say, what is the field? Field is you and me, because we have all got all these 24 constituents which are available to us. So this is the field, 24 elements consisting of the field. And we can just kind of think of this one entity called this ego identity, this human form, which is consisting of these 24 elements. And that also has something else. So we're given this structure, as it were, but there are also functionalities to this field, which we can think of as desire, hatred, pleasure, pain, aggregate the body, intelligence, and fortitude. So in other words, that whatever is going on in this field, the modifications which are taking place can be described in these categories. And Bhagavan says that in all this, in the field, there will always be some modification which is going on. And for example, in the mind, intellect, there is desire, there's a feeling of hatred, there's pleasure and pain in the body, there's perception which is going on in the body of the pain, there is intelligence, in other words, there's rationality which is available in the intellect, fortitude which is also belonging to the intellect, and so on and so on. So Kṣetra has been described, and the modification of the Kṣetra has been described. Now, in order to understand this, we don't have to look very far. We can look at ourselves and see all these things are there, not only there, but the modifications are continuously going on. Just like there are modifications going on in your mind. That is nothing but the Kṣetra. So going further, this is the Kṣetra, 24 elements, and we have spoken about each one of them. And what we have here is Kshetrajna, Brahman. Seem to be very far off. One is here, transcendental, we can't even know about it, we can't even think about it. And here's the Kshetra, which is our embodied experience here and now. What is the connection between the field and the knower of the field? Okay. So here we see that there must be a connection, because this is what Bhagwan has been talking all along, is that Brahman is not very far away. It's not out there somewhere. It is here right now, because it is continuously expressing itself through the creation at all different levels, including you and me. So there is a connection. Now, what is that connection? Bhagwan has said, okay, these elements are there. There are modifications taking place, desire, hatred, pleasure, etc. And through sadhana, we can attain a state of purification. Remember, starting right from chapter number 2, chapter number 3 on Karma Yoga is all about purification. It is all about going from the ego operating system to the Dharma operating system. And as we begin to go on this spiritual journey, more and more purification comes through our sadhana, and it begins to reveal the divinity to us. This is the pathway which Bhagavad Gita follows. In this case, in this chapter, it is this connection between the Kshetra and the Kshetrajna. And therefore, there must be this connection which is available to us through sadhana. Now, what is that sadhana which is going to not only give us purification, but will begin to manifest Brahman in us right here, right now? What is that? Cultivation of the qualities, the means. This is the knowledge which Bhagwan is going to talk about. Remember, chapter number 12, Bhagwan had already given us 36 qualities which we can cultivate in order to bring the divine right into our experience. This is also, Bhagwan is going to give us 20 qualities which we can begin to develop in order to manifest Brahman in our own lives, in our own experience. See how wonderful this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita is. It's not abstract philosophy. It is practical philosophy, living through the Gita. You and I can live through the Gita by following this very practical techniques which Bhagwan is giving us. And in this case, sadhana is about what? In order for us to manifest this divinity is by means of cultivating these qualities, the means, which is the knowledge of the means. So remember this picture. Again, it is something which is going to take us more and more and more towards knowing our true self. So from the Kshetra, which is totally identified with its body, mind, intellect, we want to experience the ultimate reality, which is Brahman, which is my true nature. And the bridge, which is there in between, is our sadhana. It is about cultivation of this quality, the means and the knowledge. So how to know and be the knower of the field in the field. How to be the knower of the field in the field. Whilst I'm just having this experience of this embodied self, how can I know the knower of the field whilst I'm still identified? So Bhagwan starts giving us these 20 qualities. Humility. This is the first one. Humility means what? Giving up the ego and the ego sense of abhiman, that I am this person. And because I'm taking myself to be this ego identity, going in the opposite direction is diminishing the me and the mine, as we have been throughout the previous chapter talking about. The purification is about diminishing again and again this me and mine. And the first thing we have to practice is humility. And it is not about just pretending to be humble, but humility comes from knowing that this is nothing. This ego identity is nothing, because my true nature is the infinite. What is this ego? And therefore, I become unpretentious because having grasped the truth about this, I don't have to kind of pretend to be this, that, and the other. Unpretentiousness, non-injury, ahimsa, then forgiveness, uprightness, service to the teacher. And this is also important. Why service to the teacher? Because teacher is the source of our true knowledge. And therefore serving the teacher by what? By following his guidance. That's the best way we can serve the teacher. Besides, of course, looking after his, needs, besides looking after his welfare, that we are going to be service to the teacher by following his guidance, following his teachings. Then purity, purity of the body, purity of the mind, purity of the intellect, all these are important for us to cultivate and develop. Steadfastness. Becoming steadfast means to employ the intellect in such a way that it becomes a powerful instrument for us to steadily move on the path towards the ultimate. Steadfastness. And then self-control, indifference to the objects of the senses, absence of egoism, perception, reflection upon evils of birth, death, old age, sickness, and their pain. All these are to do with what? They are to do with revealing the divinity within myself by decreasing more and more my attachment to the things of the world, my attachments to myself, this sense of egoism which is there. Bring it down, bring it down, bring it down. By doing what? By cultivating these qualities. So 12 qualities so far, and then going further, non-attachment, non-identification with self, with son, with wife, etc. In other words, my relationship, there is an identification, I and my family, I and my son, I and my wife, etc. Those then begin to diminish as we begin to lower our sense of this identity and attachment to things of the world. Constant even-mindedness, equanimity. This is what we have to go to cultivate again and again, so that whatever challenges are coming up, our mind becomes so resilient, it goes back to its state of evenness. And then unswerving devotion unto me by the yoga of non-separation. By the yoga of non-separation, which means this kind of non-separation between me and the divine. Devotion comes into it as well. It's not just a matter of just intellectual cultivation of certain attitudes and certain mindset and certain ways in which we are going to think about self and the world, bringing the divine right into the equation of our experience, but also devotion to the Lord. And going further, resorting to solitary places. So it means that we have to find time to be with ourselves, and be with ourselves, not with my laptop and with my phone and with this, that, and the other, but just being with myself. Just try that, solitude. Just being with yourself is an exercise in itself. Why? Because it begins to reveal this ego identity to us, because we become much more aware of what's going on in the body, mind, intellect as we stay with ourselves. Distaste for the society of men, which means that, our dependency on society of men, our dependency on other people, we begin to kind of roll back and say, actually, I am not going to be defined by my relationship to the world, nor are people going to define me. Distaste seems a bit of a strong word, but this is what Bhagavan wants us to focus on. Constancy in self-knowledge, always contemplating, listening to the knowledge, perception of the end of true knowledge, which means knowing what is the destination which I have to attain. All these are wonderful qualities. And therefore, what do we need to do? How to live through the Gita? Practice cultivating the qualities to know the knower of the field here and now. And how to deal with the ego when it arises, cultivating these qualities for Chitta Shuddhi and Samdarshanam. Remember, purification and evenness of the mind. This is what we are continuously trying to cultivate through following this and cultivating these qualities within ourselves. So memorize all these 5 verses, 13:8 to 13:12 in this chapter. Keep a list of these qualities. You always, so that you can remind yourself of these qualities again and again. Take just 1 or 2 qualities, just like we talked about in the last chapter, a week to focus on, bringing them into your awareness throughout the day, and using the 4A's method, the conscious living of your spiritual life, and then do this practice and see what difference it makes to you. Because it is only by practicing that we'll realize the truth of the Bhagavad Gita. Without that, it just remains information in our head, which we don't want. We want to live through the Gita. And then remind yourself that you are the knower of the field. And then consciously become the witness of the field, the body, mind, intellect.